you guys? Welcome back to Lily Reads. Would you believe me if I told you today we are going to do a book tag? For all you people who don't know, book tags are a thing of yesterday. Back in the day, you used to do book tags. Different creators on just the internet or just on YouTube used to come up with tags, and you would do the tag. YouTube was so simple in that way, and you would tag people. That's how you would endorse other people's channel. People would go find that channel. People don't do tags anymore. People don't do tags anymore. BookTube is one of the few places online that I think stays the same a lot, but every now and then it does change, and we just don't do tags anymore. People don't collab anymore, and I think people don't talk about books the way people used to talk about books. For example, nowadays, everything is about the reading vlog. Reading books. People read books now. But back in the day, people didn't actually read on BookTube. People didn't actually do reading vlogs. You would just come and talk about books. You would just talk about books. It was almost like a Socratic seminar in that way, where everyone would just be in conversation about books. And so you really got into the weeds about books. This is not me passing judgment on if one is good or bad. It's just a thing that people don't do tags anymore because no one really talks about books all that much until the end of the year. At the end of the year, we do our best, worst, surprising, disappointing, and stuff like that. But throughout most of the year, it's just people reading different books and saying if they like books. But no, I want to spend some time and do a tag. So I went on Google and I just Googled a book tag. And the one that piqued my interest was the 20 question tag. And Google is telling me that this tag was invented by Emily List. I will put that across the screen. Her name is Emily. And she created the 20 question tag, where you're going to get asked 20 questions. And yeah, let's talk about them. Let's see if I can answer them. I haven't really gone through the questions, so I don't know if I'll be able to answer them. But I just want to talk about books. Can you just talk about books? I want to talk about books. Anyways, let's start. How many books is too many books in a series? You guys know I can talk all day. I'm already down. How many books are too many books in a series? I am going to go out and say 2. 2 is too many. I do not believe in book series. I know I don't believe in book series because there is a book called When the Coffee Gets Cold or something like that. I'll put it up here. This series, this thing keeps on coming out with more books, and I become less and less interested in reading the original book the more they put out books in this series. It might only be 3 books, but it's more than enough. I think books should be standalones. I think books should be standalone. I'd rather you give me an 800-page book that from start to finish is complete than giving me 4 300-page books. I do not want it. I do not believe in series. The older that I get, the more that I hate series even more. I believe books should have starts and ends, and that is it. Of course, there are a couple exceptions here or there, but I do mean here or there, especially when it comes to adult books. I think there is no place for series and adult books, but here is something else you gotta hear. Kenya doesn't read fantasy. I don't read fantasy, and I try my best not to read science fiction. So, I can't judge, fantasy and stuff. If you read fantasy, you know, but, even the few fantasy books I do read, unless it's middle grade and maybe young adult, I never read the next book in the series. I'm kind of good after the first book. I don't have this deep desire to return to characters in books. I like things to be done. I'm a completionist at heart, and series just don't do nothing for me. So if I'm being cynical, series should not exist. If I'm not being cynical, what do I think is a normal 3? 3. Let's be normal. 3, right? Anything more than that becomes a little ridiculous. No, and I think conversation around books, because I'm one of those people who believes books are supposed to start conversation. You're supposed to talk about books. You're supposed to interrogate books. And I think when books start to have too many books, like there stops being able to have conversations about them because everyone hasn't read it all, and it just becomes too much. So let's say 3. Can you believe the answer is none? There shouldn't be any series. But if I'm gonna give you a little bit, 3. Next one. How do you feel about cliffhangers? This is already so fucking fun because you can tell that this tag is old because like you can tell like this just feels very like people who read like YA a little bit. How do I feel about cliffhangers? So I read mostly adult fiction, adult contemporary fiction, and you would think in adult contemporary fiction I wouldn't have to deal with cliffhangers, but actually I do. It is a common thing in literary fiction for books to end open-ended. It is a common thing for books to kind of be left to the, reader of what happens next. And so you ask me, how do I feel about them? If they're done well, I actually can really be on board with it. A book that did it this year that I read and enjoyed is The Bee Sting. The Bee Sting, I don't want to spoil anything, but The Bee Sting kind of leaves on this ambiguous tone. You don't know what is going to happen next. Another book I enjoyed this year that did that was Ordinary Hazards. That book did it as well. I'm trying to think of any other books. Like, it happens more than you would think, where books are kind of left a little open-ended, like what's going to happen next. And I actually kind of enjoy it, but the only way for me to enjoy it is if I thought you put in the work to write a good story up until then. And most of the time, usually the authors I read do. So like the entire book has to be good. Like I see that there was like intention and purpose put into it. Then I have no problem with you having an open-ended type of ending. I don't mind it. So I'm here to say Kenya doesn't mind a cliffhanger. I don't. Next one, hardback or paperback? Let me feel something out. All hardbacks aren't made the same, and all paperbacks aren't made the same. I don't think anything can beat a flimsy paperback. Like this, nothing beats this, right? Like this is reading. This is just reading. A nice, long, flimsy paperback. There is nothing better than this. This is the best way to read a book. A nice, flimsy paperback. But then you get paperbacks like this that's just like regular old paperbacks. And it's just like, I don't care. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't care, really. Like, you can give me either or. When it comes to buying books, I go with whatever's cheapest. I go with whatever is the cheapest. Sometimes when you're at the bookstore, you can go in like the clearance section of a bookstore and they will have like the paperback for like half off. Or if a book just came out in paperback and they have some hardcover still, they'll put the hardcovers on sale and the paperback is full price. Whichever one I can get the cheapest, that's what Ken's gonna get, honestly. Now the next one, this is where things get a little hard. Favorite book. Favorite book of what? This is a question that like I never know what to answer. I have so many favorite books. What is a favorite book? My favorite book of all time, I can tell you what my favorite book of all time is, because I actually never say this. Mama Day by Gloria Naylor is my favorite book of all time. Nothing is ever going to beat this. And it's so funny because this is actually a book I read in college for my degree, and it changed my life. Like, this book was everything to me. This book still is everything to me. It is so perfect. It is so stylized. The magical realism. And it's so funny. We're talking about cliffhangers. This book doesn't necessarily end in a cliffhanger, but a lot of things are ambiguous. I love everything about this book. So my favorite book of all time is Gloria Naylor's Mama Day. If you have not read it, you really, really should. Some honorable mentions. I love The Great Gatsby. I love The Catcher in the Rye. I love Sister Carrie. I love Passing. I love On Beauty by Zadie Smith. And those are just like some classics that I really, really enjoy. If I were to get into some contemporary books, I guess Zadie Smith on Beauty is contemporary. I don't know. I've given you enough. We don't have to be here all this time. I don't know. I'm one of those people, I kind of have to step away from a book to realize it's like my favorite book of all time. I think like The Bee Sting is definitely one of my favorite books of all time. Some books I read this year, Marriage Portrait is going to go down as one of my favorite books of all time. Some young adult books that are going to go down as my favorite books. Confessions of an Alleged Good Girl is 100% one of my favorite books of all time. Monday's Not Coming is a book I really, really enjoyed. So like, there's so many books that I like. Anyways, next we shall move on. Least favorite book. This is actually harder than favorite book, because when I don't like a book, I don't think about that book again. And clearly, a least favorite book of mine is not going to be on my bookshelf. But I am going to go off and say, like, Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover was one of the worst things I've ever read in my life. Like, literally, like, one of the worst things I ever read in my life was Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. I had nothing nice to say about that book. Books that people love that I really don't like. The Scarlet Letter. The Scarlet Letter is one of those classics that does absolutely nothing for me. By the way, Animal Farm as well is one of my favorite books. So yeah, those are just a little bit of books that I enjoy. The most recent book you just couldn't finish. What is the most recent book that I couldn't finish? Have I DNF'd something for you guys recently in a vlog? I know there's some books that like, I don't think I've picked up much and necessarily put it down. That's going to be a hard one. So I probably would just say a book that took me a really, really long time to get through was The Secret Bridesmaid. This book should not take a week to get through. It took me a week to finish this book. But yeah, that's like, I don't really DNF a lot of books like that. Like, it's rare for me to, because I come up with a TBR at the beginning of the month and then I see it through. It's really hard for me to just come on my bookshelf, grab a book and start reading. That's like really, really rare that I do something like that. So I don't get much DNFs. Let's move on. A book you're currently reading. At the current moment, I am reading Good Material. Good Material by Dolly Alberton. Is that who wrote the book? I don't know. But that's the book that I am currently reading. Stay tuned to a vlog to see how I feel about that book, child. The last book I would recommend to someone. That is such a good question, because not every book that I have read would I recommend. What is a book that I would just overall just recommend to someone, like, you should read this book? Ordinary Hazards. Ordinary Hazards is a book that I think would appeal to literally almost everyone, and the fact that no one has read this book is beyond me. Ordinary Hazards by Anna Bruno is a book that I would recommend to the first person that I see who's like, Kenya, what is a book I should read? You should read Ordinary Hazards, doll. The next book, oldest book you've read by publication date. The oldest book I have read by publication date, it would 100% be the oldest book I have probably ever read is The Canterbury Tales. The Canterbury Tales would probably be the oldest book that I've ever read. Like, nothing can beat The Canterbury Tales, right? Let me make sure. The Canterbury Tales came out in 1392. There's absolutely no way I've read any book that came out before 1392, right? So The Canterbury Tales is definitely the oldest book I have ever read. Next, the newest book you've read by publication date. I could go to Goodreads and find the answer to this, but I don't think I need to. I think the newest book that I've read is It's Elementary by Elise Bryant. This came out less than 2 months ago, I believe, maybe 3 months. Like, definitely, I've not read a book recently that has come out since, like, I'm not up to date on things that have recently been published. So it would 100% be that. And I don't think anything could probably even come close. It would be that. That book came out literally a few months ago. The next book, who is my favorite author? I don't really have favorite authors, but I'm going to go with Joya Goffney. Joya Goffney, I have given 3 5-stars. I've given Joya Goffney 3 5-stars, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. But if I was like being for real, Toni Morrison, Gloria Naylor, Zadie Smith, I read a Zadie Smith book this year that I did not like, so she kind of on my shit list. But like, I like every other thing that Zadie Smith puts her hands on. So yeah, that would probably be that. Yeah, those would be my favorite authors. Just picking. Buying books or borrowing books. I have the most joy when I go to the library, read a book from the library, enjoy it, and want a copy of my own. If Kenya could do her life the way she wants to do her life, I would have borrowed every book that I've ever read from the library and only purchased the books that I like. If that was what I was doing, I would have my life together. In a world where Kenya has her life together, that's what she does. She borrows all the books she reads from the library. And if she likes a book, if she gives a book 4 or 5 stars, she will purchase it on her own. But I have not gotten to that part of my journey, so that's just not how I do it. I buy what I think I'm going to like, and I need to stop because I just own too many books. So in a perfect world, Kenya would borrow most of her reads. I am past the thrill of buying books just to buy books. I'm just not, I don't know. I've left my young ways behind. A book that you dislike that everyone seems to love. Is that not everything? Is that not, what is a book that, let me change the question. What is a book that I found to be perfectly fine that everyone just loves? Like, I don't really get it. I don't get what y'all love so much about this book. Let me think on that. Definitely Such a Fun Age. Another one is Yellowface. Another one is Luster. But the biggest one, the biggest book that everyone loves that I do not get, Pachinko. I do not get the love for Pachinko. I think Pachinko as a book stops being good right here. Right here, this is all good. This little section of the book is so good. And then you get to the end, and to me, it turns into just literary fiction slop. Like, it just turns into, like, wannabe epic slop. Like, generational epic slop. Like, just a mess, honest to me. So Pachinko will be a book that everyone loves, that I just think on its best day is fine. On its best day, it's fine. On its worst day, I think it's sloppy. Pachinko. Next. Bookmarks or dog ears? I am bookmarks all day. I love a good bookmark, baby. Next. A book you can always reread. Oh, there are so many. First things first is the entire Junie B. Jones series. If I am having a bad day, it's been a long time since I've done this, but back in the day, I would just read a Junie B. Jones book in the morning. Junie B. Jones just takes me to a place. It takes me to a time in my childhood. Junie B. Jones is when I figured out I loved reading. So Junie B. Jones, I can read a Junie B. Jones book in like 20 minutes because it's for kids. And I love it. Another book, The Lemony Snicket, A Series of Unfortunate Events, could read those books front to back any day of the week. Some other books that I could constantly reread: On Beauty by Zadie Smith, of course, Animal Farm, The Great Gatsby. I can read The Great Gatsby over and over and over again. Every time I read The Great Gatsby, there's something else I love about it. Anything else that and then you have like my young adult. Any of my young adult faves, Highly Suspicious, Unfairly Cute, Charming as a Verb, all of those books I could literally read 10 times over. Love them. Can you read while listening to music? Sure, I can read while doing almost anything. I can read while, the only time I cannot read, I don't like reading on planes and car rides. I have horrible motion sickness. So like moving, I can't read and move, but I can watch TV and read. I can damn near hold a conversation and read. There's not much I can't do. And so music is fairly easy. Okay, one or multiple POVs. I like, you know when you have a POV and a POV and then those POVs gonna merge at some point? I really like that. I've learned to really, really enjoy that. Especially sometimes when it's like a young like it's the same person at two POVs. Ooh, I love that. But in the end, though, I'd rather just have one. To be honest with you, when it comes to stylistic choices, I don't really like it when people do a little bit too much. Like, I kind of like my book straightforward. So I'm going to just say one. Don't be mistaken for narrative structures. I do like interesting narrative structures. I like seeing books told in specific type of ways. I love seeing people play with narrative structures and how you can build a story. So how you choose to tell a specific story and the structure of the story. So having different timelines over there and I love that. I love when people go crazy with narrative structures. I don't necessarily love when people go crazy with narrative POVs. Narrative point of views. Yeah, that works. Do you read a book in one sitting or over multiple days? I challenge you a secret third thing. I read books by pages. So every day I start my day saying I want to read 150 pages. Of something. I want to read 150 pages. So if I'm reading this book and I'm already on page 200, then I'll finish this book, right? Because it's not that long. So I just come up with a page number that I want to read books. So recently, I've been reading books in intervals of 50. I just try to read 50 pages every maybe 2 hours. Every 3 hours, I want to read 50 pages. And so throughout the day, I let 3 hours go by. Have you read your 50 pages, Kenya? If I haven't, I need to stop whatever I'm doing and I need to read 50 pages. And what this has helped with is brain rot. This has helped with sitting on my computer or phone and getting into the scrolling. I have to stop myself from doing the scrolling. I have a bad habit. Really, it's YouTube videos. I have a bad habit of just getting on my computer and watching YouTube videos that lead to another YouTube video. Then I'm listening to somebody talk about something and it's just like, Kenya, you're brain rotting. You don't even want to be doing this. You're just doing this because it's easy to do. And so I look, Kenya, have you read 50 pages in the past 3 hours? No, you haven't. So I stop everything. I read 50 pages. So that's what I like to do. But to answer the question, do you read a book in one sitting or multiple days? I rarely read a book in one setting. I'm a 3-day girl. I do not like reading a book more than 3 days. After 3 days, it starts to drag, baby. No. Next, a book you read because of the cover. Almost every book I read because of the cover. Of course I'm a cover buyer. What is the most? Probably She Is a Haunting. I would have never read She Is a Haunting if not for this cover. Like, in what world does Kenya need to read young adult horror? Never. It's the cover that made me do that. That's it. I answered 20 questions. That was fun. Cassie, I can talk all damn day. Tags are fun. Let's bring tags back, baby. Anyways, I will talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.